let's talk about a critical piece of financial machinery that you've probably never even heard of, but it moves billions of dollars and it impacts millions of lives. It's a simple 9-digit number right at the heart of the US tax system, called the Individual Taxpayer Identification Number, or ITIN for short. So, just how big is this machine? Well, tax returns filed using an ITIN bring in billions of dollars to the US Treasury every single year. We're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 to $4 billion recently. This is not some small, forgotten program. It's a major financial engine. But here's where it gets really interesting. Its job has grown way beyond just taxes. This number has accidentally become a key to the entire mainstream financial world. People use it to open bank accounts, apply for credit cards, and even get mortgages from the biggest banks in the country. But there's a flip side. For all its power, this machine is deeply flawed. It's got complicated rules, frustrating hurdles, and automated traps that cause a ton of stress and cost real families millions of dollars in lost tax credits. So what is this powerful and kind of paradoxical number? How did a simple tool for taxes become so important, and why is it causing so much trouble? Okay, let's break it all down. To really get what the ITIN is all about, we have to rewind back to its original blueprint in 1996. The Treasury Department created it for one and only one very clear reason: to handle taxes. It was just meant to fill a gap for people who had to pay US taxes but couldn't get a Social Security number. And what's really interesting here is how specific they were. The IRS is crystal clear. An ITN is a tax processing number. Its only official job is to help people comply with tax law. That's it. Period. Now, this is where most of the confusion comes from. An ITIN is not a Social Security number. The IRS gives you an ITIN for taxes. The Social Security Administration gives you an SSN for work and benefits. And this part is absolutely crucial. An ITIN does not give you permission to work in the US. They're in two totally different lanes. And in its main role, the ITIN system is a huge success for the Treasury. Millions of tax returns get filed with ITINs every year, and that lets the IRS collect billions in revenue it just couldn't get otherwise. So if the ITIN was only meant for taxes, how in the world did it become a key to the entire financial system? Well, it wasn't supposed to. This was a complete accident, an unexpected upgrade that was triggered by a totally different set of rules. Here's how it happened. After 9/11, the USA Patriot Act required banks to verify the identity of all their customers. But that created a problem. What about the huge number of people who wanted to open a bank account but didn't have a Social Security number? The solution was actually buried in the regulations, which specifically said an ITIN was a perfectly good alternative ID. And just like that, the function of the ITIN completely exploded. Suddenly, it was the tool that unlocked all the basic parts of American financial life. Opening bank accounts, getting credit cards, even securing mortgages. It became a gateway to being part of the financial system. But this powerful machine has some serious problems. And the very first one is just getting the number in the first place. We're calling it the application gauntlet because it's a really high-stakes process that puts a huge burden on the person applying. Everything kicks off with this document, Form W7. To get an ITIN, you have to send this application to the IRS, usually with your tax return. But the real challenge isn't the form itself, it's what you have to send with it. And the risk here is huge. To prove who you are, you often have to mail your original documents. I'm talking about your actual passport or your birth certificate to the IRS. These are things you can't replace, and the risk of them getting lost or even destroyed is very real. In 2023 alone, the IRS actually destroyed almost 8,000 taxpayer documents. On top of all that, they've slashed the number of acceptable IDs from 40 all the way down to just 13. This chart really shows you how tough it is to do this on your own. If you just mail in your documents, you have less than a 69% chance of getting approved. But if you use what's called a certifying acceptance agent, a professional who's authorized by the IRS to check your documents, your success rate jumps to over 85%. These agents are essential, but yeah, their services aren't free. Okay, so let's say you get through that whole application gauntlet. You think you're safe, right? Well, not exactly. There's another flaw built right into the system, a trap that can automatically shut your number down, and you might not even know it happened. This rule started back in 2015. It's basically a use it or lose it system. If your ITIN isn't on a tax return for 3 years straight, it just expires automatically. You can imagine how this creates a constant problem for anyone whose income isn't the same every year. And this deactivation rule has some major consequences. In 2022 alone, the IRS sent out math error notices to nearly 22,000 taxpayers. What that notice basically says is that a dependent's ITIN is no good and automatically denies any tax credits attached to them. And what's the financial damage? For those families, it meant losing about $4.4 million in the other dependent credit, money they were legally entitled to. That's a direct, measurable financial hit caused by this automated flaw in the system. So what we have is this complex, powerful, and pretty flawed machine. To wrap things up, let's look at the human ecosystem that's popped up around it. The people who operate it, navigate it, and try to fix it when it breaks. This whole ecosystem really boils down to 3 key groups. First, you have the users, who are overwhelmingly low-income filers. Second, you have the central processor, the IRS, which is buried under more than 1 million of these applications every year. And third, you have the navigators, those certifying acceptance agents, the essential experts who know how to get through the system. Which brings us right back to where we started, the Form W-7. It's the perfect symbol for this whole system. For the people who can figure it out, it's a gateway to paying taxes and getting into the financial system. But for too many others, its complexity and risks just make it a barrier. And that leaves us with the big question. This machine is undeniably powerful. It helps the government collect taxes, and it helps people access banks. So the challenge is this: how do we fix the very real flaws, the application risks, and the deactivation traps, without breaking the parts of this unintended machine that are actually working so well?